Hello and welcome to this conversation with U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. He was Secretary of Defense 2025. A critical period for Europe. It was the return of war, the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. A critical moment for the transatlantic alliance. I have to say, which showed incredible unity faced with this unexpected event. Madrid summit, very clear signal in support of Ukraine, in support of territorial integrity, sovereignty in Europe, but also in other parts of the world where this is also an issue. At the time also when the US forces underwent a modernization effort, especially on the technological side. So, Secretary, this is going to be a conversation with an old friend of Europe. So let me warn the audience, this is not going to be about sound bites, especially not sound bites that may be heard in Washington. This is you, as a friend of Europe, giving us a bit of advice, if that's okay, also with the audience. So let me start with Ukraine. With the benefit of hindsight, what is it that we didn't get right in the first 2 years of this war? And what is it that we could have done differently? So, you know, a bit of lessons learned after years of grueling conflict.
Well, there are a lot of things that we could say we didn't get right at the beginning. I would say that, you know, as far as the way that Ukraine prosecuted the fight, we wanted them to be a bit more ready because we could clearly see what was developing. We wanted them to maneuver a bit more early on, and I think that would have prevented some of the deadlock that we saw early on and the enormous exchanges of artillery. I think that initially Ukraine probably didn't mobilize to the degree that I would have liked to have seen them mobilize. And later on you saw them adjust their mobilization policies, which is paying dividend for them now. But I think early on that gave them some problems. You saw us rush to pull together allies and partners to support Ukraine once the fighting started. And if you kind of reflect back on this, as you may have heard me say before, Russia is a country with the largest military in Europe that invaded its neighbor who didn't have much of a military capability at the outset. And as we look at this fight now, 3+ years later, Ukraine is still a sovereign country. It still is making its own decisions. It's still, you know, very much a democracy. We want to see it continue to be a democracy and have the means to defend itself going forward. But to this point, Putin has not achieved any meaningful tactical or operational objective. In almost every case, he's failed to do what he had set out to do. And that's a significant statement about the will of the Ukrainian people. It's an even larger statement about Europe and our European allies and partners that really leaned into this and provided tremendous support. So we pulled together early on to provide Ukraine the support that it needed. And again, as we set out on this journey, we had to give them things that their troops could easily operate and benefit from. And I remain impressed with how adaptive the Ukrainian leadership and the Ukrainian soldiers are.
No, it's truly impressive what has happened in Ukraine, how they've worked on the battlefield. What is it that we need to do collectively to support Ukraine to victory now?
Well, I think we need to do more of what we are doing. And you mentioned some of the outcomes of the summit. I think there were some really good outcomes, and the support for Ukraine was quite evident. You know, as we listened to allies. A very meaningful outcome was the fact that almost every country signed up to spend 5% of GDP on defense and those things that support defense. So 3.5% of that pledge goes to core defense issues, and another 1.5% to infrastructure. That's a tremendous commitment. And what that means is that I think there's going to be a lot of resources, there are a lot of resources to provide additional support, not only for Ukraine, but most importantly for all of the NATO countries. And with that kind of support, I think there are things that we need to do to ensure that we make best use of that. As we look to acquire new systems and new munitions, I think we need to, first of all, make sure we look at the future threat, the current and future threat, make sure we outline that appropriately and agree on that. Then we need to coordinate and synchronize requirements so that we are developing capability that's useful, but we are avoiding developing or creating redundant capability unless we want that redundancy in some areas. We have to mobilize our industrial bases. We have to take a hard look at the way that we're developing systems and not just focus on the hardware, but as me and my colleagues continue to learn over and over again, something we already knew, you not only have to have the hardware, but you have to account for the training and the life cycle sustainment of these platforms. And I think that if we do this, and we do this the right way, we work together as a team, I think Europe will certainly rise to the challenge. You're already doing that. You'll not only, at the end of the day, be more interoperable than we were at the start of this conflict. Our magazines will have a significant amount of depth, and we didn't have that depth starting out on this. So Europe is getting stronger. The challenge will be for us to work together, for you to work together, to ensure that number one, we're developing things at the required speed and scale, and I think we can do that through co-production and joint purchases. And it will create the capacity in individual countries that you need, and also give you the flexibility and adaptability to adjust to new and different challenges.
Secretary, as you know, you've been here for a few hours, and you know also that Russia is very much testing the limits with European countries. It's testing the limits with Poland, with the Baltic states, with Denmark. What's your advice to European leaders and to the European military? How should Europe respond to this testing from Russia?
Once again, thanks, great question. Once again, Putin's objective, two of his strategic objectives are to fracture NATO and to strip away the support, the security assistance that you are providing to Ukraine. As he tests individual countries, he's pushing to see if he can use that kind of activity to fracture your ability to work with each other. I think Boris Pistorius said it best this morning in that, some of this you can see that Putin is clearly laying a trap, and you have to be thoughtful about how you respond and be careful to not fall into his trap. And I think thinking through this together and not overreacting, I think is what I would recommend. And I think that's the way that many of you are thinking. And I also talked to Hanno Pevkur earlier today, again, another great Minister of Defense. I can tell you that he is thinking the same way. So this dialogue that goes on frequently amongst colleagues and allies, we got to make sure that continues to happen, and we got to make sure that you stay focused on the right things.
This is very important piece of advice for Europe at this point. Secretary, you were in the NATO summit in Madrid, a great show of unity. There was the summit in The Hague. Unity, new targets were set for investments in defense, much needed. Where should NATO focus now? What should be the guiding star now?
Well, I think, first of all, we have to get this right, as I said. You know, we've committed to provide a lot of resources, to spend a lot of money, but it's not just about spending the money, it's about creating the right capabilities. And I think we will do that. But we have to create those capabilities at the right speed. If we go about this the wrong way and we don't take advantage of the technologies that are out there, and we don't be willing to co-produce with others, then I think it will take an enormous amount of time to build the capabilities that you need to build. But there are smart ways to do this, and I think refining our policies, refining our acquisition systems, I think would be very, very helpful. But we're going to have to do that as a team so that we can do things cross-border very easily. We can interchange capabilities. We can link systems together and be successful. I think this is going to take us a bit of time to work our way through, and I think we need to remain focused on the North Star. And the North Star is making sure that Ukraine is successful. And again, we define success as Ukraine remaining, at the end of all of this, remaining a sovereign country that is a democracy that can continue to defend itself against future aggression. Ukraine, I think, has probably the second largest military in Europe right now because of all the things that you've done to provide additional capability. You can be successful in supporting Ukraine. You will be successful as long as you stay focused on the right things and stay the course. And again, in the words of Boris Pistorius this morning, not allow yourself to fall into a trap unnecessarily, and then begin to contest each other's actions. That would be the worst possible outcome. I know we're all thinking the same, but we got to do those things that support that philosophy. And I know most of the ministers of defense personally, spent a lot of time with them, and I know what you're capable of, and I know how committed to this you are. Hey, listen, in the days leading up to this moment, I've asked your ministers of defense and your countries to dig deep and give everything that you could to help Ukraine be successful. No one in this room would have imagined that 3+ years, more than a half, 3+ years into this, we would have been where we are right now, and Ukraine still standing tall, and not only standing tall, but punching back in a major way. And again, I think that success, that continued success, will set the stage for future negotiations. And this conflict will have to be resolved at the negotiation table. You've heard me say that a number of times. You've heard our former chairman, Mark Milley, say that, and all of you fully realize that. We just need to set the stage so that Ukraine can enter those negotiations with the right amount of wasta, for lack of a better term. And so I think we're headed in that direction. I think Putin is beginning to realize that not only has he not been successful, but he will not be successful. But the European allies must remain united. I cannot overemphasize that.
So, unity, that's an important word. It's unity for the European allies. Obviously, there is also the transatlantic unity. What's your advice on that front? Because obviously NATO is based on the unity between both sides of the Atlantic. And let's say that this family has seen good moments, it's seen less good moments, let's call them like this. What's your advice for us? How do we maintain the unity of the transatlantic alliance?
Well, my prediction is that we will remain united. I mean, and you're exactly right. If you look back over the history of our relationships, there have been some times that we have been, absolutely knitted together. There have been other times when we were a bit fragmented. So this is, that's not new. But what we've learned over time is that when we hit these moments in time where we are experiencing some frictions, we have to work together from both ends to try to, resolve that friction and recognize that transatlantic unity, it must be there in the future. I mean, it will set the stage for stability and security for the rest of the world. And again, I have every belief that it will be. And again, the president and the current administration will decide on the future issues as they arise. But and I have no comment on that. But I would tell you that I truly believe that we're going to remain united going forward.
That's a sigh of relief in the room, I guess. Let me turn to the Indo-Pacific, Secretary, because you worked a lot to build unity between the United States and Europe to focus on the Indo-Pacific together as an alliance. And we don't really hear the same tune now. What's your advice on the Indo-Pacific?
Well, the Indo-Pacific is really important to all of us, and I applaud the NATO countries that have leaned into that effort over the years. I think it's time and resources well invested. You have to remember that China is the only country that has both the means in terms of military might and the desire to change the rules-based international order. And so as we look at China's or the PRC's actions in the Indo-Pacific, they remain concerning. And I think that, what happens in the Indo-Pacific will clearly impact, what's going on in Europe. So I think you had the right focus. You still have the right focus. The main effort, of course, has to be in getting the Ukraine-Russia issue resolved, and we will do that. But we have to stay focused on what's going on in the Indo-Pacific because if not, that in and of itself will change the state of play, change the world order going forward.
You've spoken about the incredible efforts that Ukraine has deployed to assert itself. What lessons can we draw from this Ukrainian experience that would be useful to NATO allies? What is it that we have to learn from Ukraine and Ukraine's actions on the battlefield?
Well, you got a couple of hours? I think what's most important is that we don't learn the wrong things and we actually learn the right things. Now, in terms of practical things that we can get our arms around, I think, one of the things that they taught us right away is that if you can be adaptable and agile, then you can be successful, and Ukraine has demonstrated that over and over again. They have developed the ability to innovate software-based systems in a way that was kind of unimaginable, or change software-based systems in a way that was unimaginable prior to now. Their innovation cycle is something between 15 and 20 days. So when you deploy an asset against an adversary, that adversary will react, and then there's got to be a counteraction to that reaction. And so Ukraine has demonstrated the ability to react to whatever the enemy is presenting and be effective with a change to the platform within 15 to 20 days. That is amazing speed. That's something that we would never imagine. We've seen them use unmanned systems in ways that are very, very innovative and effective. And they've helped them do some things that, again, would have been beyond belief. I take you back to what happened with the Black Sea Fleet, the Russian Black Sea Fleet. The Ukraine military defeated the Black Sea Fleet for all practical purposes, and it did it without a navy. And it was using unmanned systems. It was innovating in ways that made it very difficult for the Black Sea Fleet to operate in that part of the Black Sea. And it pushed the Black Sea Fleet back to the eastern shores there. So you look at what they're doing with casualty evacuation. They're using unmanned systems to do that, using unmanned systems to resupply their troops in the field. So there are a number of things that they have been very, very successful at. It's been amazing to watch them in the middle of this fight create additional defense industrial base capability. You'll recall when this fight started, they had very little industrial base capability. What they did have was a population that was darn determined to be successful, darn determined to win, and to defend their territory. And so we've seen them invest in the capability to build unmanned systems, unmanned aerial systems in ways that are pretty impressive. And now they are the experts in building these systems. And I think you've heard that before in one of the seminars today. They now can teach us, can teach some of the people who don't have a lot of capacity and capability in developing unmanned systems on how to do this, because they've done this at speed and scale in a way that was, not that we wouldn't have imagined going into this. So there's a lot to learn from this battlefield. We just got to make sure that we learn the right lessons, but the ability to innovate is one of the key lessons that I think everybody takes away.
It's not probably very elegant to ask the Secretary of Defense to make a bet, but what's your bet on will Ukraine be able to prevail?
Well, let me just make a comment on what you just said. Secretaries do make bets. Soldiers make bets. And since I wore a uniform for 41 years and was in combat close to, well over 5 years in combat, you never are guaranteed any kind of outcome when you join battle, when you engage an adversary. So you're making a bet every time you do that. You just want to make informed bets. And since I was able to do what I did for 41 years and then 4 years again as a secretary, I made some pretty good bets. The best bet I have to make today is that Ukraine will prevail. And it will prevail because of your support. Ukraine is not, the people are not getting weaker. They are getting stronger. You see that resolve strengthening. And again, it's because of their will to fight and their will to protect their sovereignty, but it's also because of what you have done to make that possible. What you have done. So now is not the time to fold our chairs and say, well, we've done enough. We almost got there, and now it's too bad we weren't successful. We have to be successful. Ukraine matters. Ukraine matters not only to Europe, but it matters to the world. And the bet that I will continue to make is that Ukraine will be successful because of you. thank you so much for what you've done for this great nation.
Well, now we know that secretaries of defense not only make bets, but they make good bets. So please give him a big round of applause. Thank you, Secretary Austin.